Welcome to my sanctuary. This old castle is more than just a building made of rock and mortar. It's alive, it breathes, it dreams. It sleeps through the centuries, and its dreams are the lives contained within its walls. I feel the immense weight of these stones, not as a burden, but as a protective embrace, a sheltering kindness that has endured, that will endure, and to which I am utterly committed. These are old stones, some of them hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years old, and yet they are so alive. They feel the sun's caress during the day, and as the light fades and the shadows lengthen, they draw the sun's warmth into their ancient hearts and slowly, gently release it into the cool night air. Even now, in the fading light, I can feel the residual heat from the day trapped within them, and it's a comforting, grounding feeling, like being hugged by a warm, timeless presence. I run my hand along the rough-hewn beam that runs above me, and I close my eyes, imagining the countless hands that have brushed against it over the years, each leaving a whisper of their touch, a memory embedded in the grain of the wood. Some of these beams are so thick, 2 men could stand on them, shoulder to shoulder, and still have room to spare. What secrets do they hold? What stories could they tell if only their timbers could speak? I wonder about the lives that have unfolded here, the laughter and the tears, the hopes and the fears that have echoed within these 4 walls. I feel connected to all of them, the people who lived here before me, who breathed the same air, walked the same paths, slept in the same beds. I sense their presence all around me, and it's a humbling, even sacred feeling to know that I'm part of this unbroken chain of humanity, a link in the great chain of life that binds us all together across time. The air within the castle is always filled with a specific scent, a heady mix of aged wood from the great beams overhead, of rushes strewn on the floor, releasing a faint hay-like sweetness with every soft footstep, and the ever-present clean smoke from the hearth. It's a smell that takes me back to childhood memories of simpler times, of cozy evenings spent reading by the firelight, of lazy summer days spent exploring the castle's many nooks and crannies. It's a smell that evokes a sense of peace and tranquility, of being wrapped in the warm embrace of home. And as I wander through the silent halls, I can almost hear the whispers of the past, the murmur of voices long since faded, the echo of footsteps that have long since fallen silent. I can almost see the flickering flames of candles, dancing shadows on the wall, the glint of sunlight on polished armor, the smiles and laughter of a long-ago Christmas Eve. I feel the weight of history all around me, the knowledge that I am standing where kings and queens once stood, where battles were planned and victories were celebrated. I am humbled by the immensity of it all, by the sheer weight of the past that surrounds me. Yet I am not afraid, for in this place, among these ancient stones, I find a sense of peace and purpose. I am part of something greater than myself, a legacy that stretches back through the centuries, a story that is still being written. And as I walk the battlements gazing out over the endless expanse of the sea, I feel a sense of wonder and awe at the beauty of it all, at the privilege of being alive, of being here, of being a part of this timeless tale. It is in the Queen's Solar, her private withdrawing room, where we find ourselves now. The room is small by castle standards, but it is the most comfortable place in the entire fortress. A fire crackles in the hearth, a friendly, whispering sound. Each pop and hiss is a tiny event, a spark of life in the quiet room. The flames dance, casting long, wavering shadows that sway and bow upon the stone walls like silent, graceful courtiers. The light catches the rich colors of a tapestry hanging nearby. It depicts a unicorn in a forest, and if you look closely, you can see each individual thread, wool and silk, woven together to create a world of green and white and deep, serene blue. Sunlight streams through a window, warm and bright, touching the heavy velvet curtains, the wooden floor, the queen's high back, chair made of dark oak and inlaid with ivory. She sits upon it now, or rather reclines, for there are cushions piled behind her back, supporting her weight, supporting her person. Her head is bowed, her hands folded in her lap, and yet she seems not to be praying, not to be thinking, not even to be breathing. She appears so still, so utterly composed that one might mistake her for a statue, a sculpted figure, frozen forever in the act of meditation, except that every so often, ever so slightly, her chest rises and falls, and that tells us she is alive. That tells us she is well. She is lost in thought, but her thoughts are not troubled. They drift like clouds across an endless summer sky, light and free, unburdened. The queen is at peace. Turn your eyes now to the window. Beyond it, the world stretches, a patchwork quilt of fields and forests, hills and houses, all bathed in the golden glow of day. Not a detail too much, not a feature too bold. All is in balance, all is as it should be. This moment, this place, it is perfect. Nothing could disturb it, nothing could threaten it, not while the queen attends to her quiet vigil. She has been watching those flames for a long time, longer than any reasonable person would sit by a fire without tiring. Yet the queen feels no fatigue. Her eyes, they do not flicker, they do not waver. They are fixed upon the hearth, and in the flickering firelight, she sees all that she needs to see. There is a small, sad smile upon her lips, a hint of melancholy in her gaze. But it is not a sorrowful countenance, not a regretful, it is a thoughtful one. The look of one who ponders the mysteries of life, the universe, everything and nothing. She has seen much in her long years, much joy and much sorrow, much triumph and much loss. She has loved and lost. She has reigned over a realm in turmoil and a realm at peace. She has played her part well, her duty done with honor and with grace, and now she is rewarded. Now she is allowed a moment of quiet contemplation, a stolen hour of respite from the endless round of royal duties. Let us not disturb her. Let us not break the spell of this interior world, this quiet sunlit room, the dancing flames, the gentle breeze, sighing through the open window, the tapestry of green and white and blue upon the wall, the queen's still form serene and peaceful, like unto a statue come to life, only in the flickering firelight. For here in this place, all is well. Eleanor, the queen, is sitting by the window. Her hands are busy with her needlework. She is not old, but she is no longer young. Her life is one of immense privilege and immense waiting. Her days are not filled with thrilling escapades. They are a slow, measured tapestry of their own. She pulls the needle up and then pushes it down, a tiny, precise motion. The sound of the linen threads sliding through the fabric is a soft, almost inaudible she thread. Up and down, she thread. Her breathing is slow and even, matching the rhythm of her work. In and out, she thread. She has been working on this same piece for 6 months. A border of intricate, interlocking flowers. She knows every petal, every leaf. There is no rush. There is only the slow, patient creation of beauty, one tiny stitch at a time. This is her meditation. This is her escape from the weight of her crown, the expectations of her court, the endless, boring cycle of her life. The sun drifts lower in the sky, painting the clouds with hues of orange and purple. The day, like the queen's life, is slipping away into twilight. How many sunsets has she seen from this window? How many times has she watched the sun surrender to the night, only to rise again and do it all over again? The flowers on her needle flash with trapped sunlight, a riot of color against the white linen. Red poppies like splashes of blood, forget-me-nots the color of a summer sky, a single white rose, perfect and unblemished, just like the ones that had adorned her hair on her wedding day. The queen feels a smile tug at her lips. She remembers that day so clearly. The sun, it was a spring day, warm and bright, just like today. The people had crowded the streets, their faces upturned, eager to catch a glimpse of the handsome prince as he rode into town on a white horse. And she, the unknown girl from a minor noble family, had sat in a tower, watching. He had been the first and only love of her life. Kind, gentle, funny. He had made her laugh. He had looked at her as if she were the sun, and she had shone back at him, bright and unafraid. She had borne him 2 sons, strong and healthy, both with his gentle eyes and warm smiles. She had watched them grow, watched them ride their first horses, heard their first hesitant words, seen their first kills in the hunting fields. Time had slipped by, filled with small joys and quiet pride. But now, they were gone, both of them, off fighting some senseless, bloody war, leaving her here, a useless, aging woman in a useless, aging man's castle. Her fingers tighten around the needle. Her chest constricts with worry. When will they come back? Will they come back? Is she too old to bear another child, another hope? Has her purpose withered along with her youth? The white rose on her needle seems to mock her. Roses are for weddings, not for mourning. She lets her head fall back against the cushion. Why does the sky have to be so big? Why does the sun have to shine so relentlessly? Why does the world keep turning when there is no joy left in it? A tear escapes, tracing a hot path down her wrinkled cheek. What is a queen without her court, her people, her purpose? What is a queen without an heir? What is a queen without a king? She closes her eyes, clutching the needle like a lifeline. Who is she? Drip, pause, drop, plink. It's 3:15 in the afternoon, in the year 1364. That drip, that pause, that drop, that plink is my alarm clock. It dictates my day. It guides my life along its eternal cycle, like the hands of an invisible clockmaker. You would think being queen is like having your own personal 24-hour clock. A whole team of servants ready to tell the time down to the very second. You'd be wrong. Being queen means having your hours even more tightly scheduled than the one I just described. That leaky roof is nothing compared to the deluge that is my day. If I have any free time at all, it is measured in seconds between the coronation ceremony and the funeral rites. All other moments belong to someone else. I am Eleanor of Aquitaine, Queen of England, and this is the first weird truth of royal life. The grandeur is a cage of routine. My life is dictated by the sun and the church bells. I wake at the same time, pray at the same time, eat at the same time. Every action is a ceremony, a performance of stability for the hundreds of people who depend on me and my husband. There is no spontaneity, no popping out for a walk, no deciding to skip a meal. My life is a beautifully illuminated manuscript, and every hour is already written. The sun follows the same path across the sky every day. But here in England, the nights are long in winter, and since sunrise doesn't happen until well after first light, my day begins with candles. A flickering circle of flame against the deep blue velvet of night. I awake in the round tower of Windsor Castle. Its circular walls are cool against my cheek. Above me, the leaded panes of glass catch the faintest glimmer of dawn. I do not need an alarm to rise. The very structure of the tower seems to vibrate with the promise of a new day. As soon as I can, I leave my bed and cross the room to the stone window. The view is spectacular, but what good is a spectacular view if there is no one to marvel at it? Looking out over the vastness of the English countryside, I see fields and forests and rivers and roads. I see villages and towns and cities and castles, but in that panorama, I rarely see anyone, and even if I did, how would they see me? How would they know who I am? From this distance, I am nothing more than a dark smudge against the light. I am anonymous, invisible, and in that anonymity, I find a strange kind of peace. For just a moment, I am not Queen Eleanor, Duchess of Aquitaine, Countess of Poitiers. No titles, no expectations, no burdens. I am simply Eleanor. When I turn away from the window, my ladies-in-waiting are already in the room, brushing my hair, helping me dress, applying the unguents and cosmetics that will transform me from plain Eleanor into Queen Eleanor. A queen is expected to look like a queen. My dress must be perfect, my jewelry impeccable, my appearance flawless. After all, I am a walking advertisement for the divine right of kings. If I look anything less than regal, my husband, King Edward III, might hear whispers that his bride is careless or worse, that she does not care for him or their marriage. And now it is time to face another truth of royal life, the endless parade of banquets. Today we are dining with a visiting delegation from France. Our guests have arrived in the middle of the night and have already been given their rooms and settled in. Soon they will come to the great hall for breakfast. Royal protocol requires that we feed our guests before they have a chance to eat in their own right. It is yet another opportunity to broadcast our wealth and power. Everywhere I look, there are signs of the preparations for this morning's banquet. Men are readying tables, setting out plates and cutlery, arranging flowers, carving meat, pouring wine. Women are polishing goblets, adjusting tapestries, lighting candles. The men are silent, their faces grim with concentration. The women gossip in hushed tones, their voices mingling with the clatter of dishes and the murmur of servants moving about their business. And now I hear the trumpets announcing our guests. I take my place at the high table, my throne set off to one side. To my right sits my husband, King Edward III. He is handsome, in a severe way, all sharp angles and hard edges. His eyes are like chips of ice, his mouth a thin, hard line. He is the picture of masculine perfection, or so everyone tells me. To my left sits my stepson, the young Prince Richard. He is sweet and funny, with the easy charm that comes from never having to worry about anything. He is also my son, the child I had with my first husband when I was still the Queen of France. Ah, those were different times, different rules, different everything. I smile sadly and turn my attention back to the festivities. As the feast progresses, I chat with our guests, compliment them on their manners, their appearance, their wit, their taste in wine. I must be cordial, gracious, and charming, even though I feel like nothing more than an actress reciting a well-worn part. Everyone has their role to play here, and no one is allowed to forget it. I have mine, so do my husband and my son. Our French guests have theirs, the bards have theirs, the jesters have theirs, even the serving girls have theirs. Everyone has a role to play, and no one is allowed to break character. Not even me. What do you talk about when you spend your days in candlelit rooms and your nights in coffin-like beds? What do you talk about when the outside world is nothing but a distant memory? What do you talk about when the only sounds you hear are the ticking of the clocks and the dripping of the leaky roofs? What do you talk about when your life is nothing but a series of meaningless ceremonies? It's 6 o'clock in the evening. By now, I am both famished and stuffed to the gills. Between the bread, the cheese, the meat, the fruit, the sweets, the wine, the ale, the water. I have consumed enough food to feed a small army, yet I feel hollow inside. I want something real, something raw, something to remind me that I am alive. The king has excused himself to retire to his chamber. My stepson is playing a rousing game of dice with some visiting nobles. The French delegation is drinking heavily and making merry. And I am sitting here at the high table, picking at a moldy piece of bread. I wish I could go to the kitchens and devour a hot pie, fresh from the oven. I wish I could join the servants in the buttery and share their simple supper. I wish I could sneak out of the castle and wander the streets of London as an anonymous beggar. Anything to feel something other than this crushing, inescapable routine. But it's too late. The feast is over, and I must wash and prepare for bed. There is no escape. There is no tomorrow. The sun will rise again soon, and with it, my duties, my obligations, my gilded cage. I am Eleanor of Aquitaine, and this is my story. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review. We'll see you next time. She stood at the window and watched the sun set behind the tall trees at the edge of the property, knowing she'd be awake in a few hours to the roosters crowing and the cows being moved to their summer pasture. And it would be another day like yesterday, which was like the day before and the day after, forever unchanging. It wasn't a bad life. In fact, it was rather pleasant. But sometimes, just sometimes, when the sky was clear and the air was still, the silence of the countryside pressed in on her like the four gray walls of the keep, and the rolling fields beyond her window mocked her with their endless sameness. She sighed and turned away from the window. She was 19 years old. Yet she had the heart of an old woman. She traced the worn grooves of the window seat with her finger, remembering countless hours spent here watching the world go by. Or perhaps more accurately, not go by. The castle was built on a high hill, and from this vantage point, you could see for miles. The land was a patchwork of green and brown fields, divided by dark, tangled lines of hedgerows. A river snaked through the valley below, a silver ribbon catching the last of the afternoon light. The wind moved over the grasslands, and the long blades bent and swayed in a slow, endless wave, like the breathing of the earth itself. It was a view that changed with the seasons, but from day to day, it was always the same. A beautiful, peaceful, monotonous painting. A low growl rumbled in her belly, and she went to find something to eat. Her mother would have supper ready soon, and she could hear the clatter of pots and pans from the kitchen below. She ran down the stairs, eager to escape the suffocating quiet of the tower and join the bustle of family life. Her father was in the great hall already, his large frame filling out the worn leather chair he sat in. He looked up as she entered, a smile crinkling the corners of his kind eyes. "Ah, there you are, my little nightingale," he said, his voice a deep rumble like distant thunder. "I was wondering where you'd gotten to." She smiled back, feeling the nickname, though endearing, was a bit outdated. She was no little girl anymore, yet her father still called her Nightingale. "I was just in my tower watching the sunset, Papa." He grunted noncommittally and returned to his paperwork, and she knew better than to press him for conversation. Not tonight, anyway. Some days her father was a jovial, talkative man, and those were good days. But other days, like today, he was a brooding, taciturn presence, and it was best to leave him be. She found her mother in the kitchen, stirring a pot on the fire. Her mother was small and slight, with hands that shook slightly from years of stirring pots and tending fires. Yet there was a strength in her gentle eyes that belied her fragile appearance. She looked up as Ella entered and smiled, a web of wrinkles crinkling around her eyes. "You're just in time, child. Supper's ready." Ella sat down at the rough wooden table, thankful for the warmth of the fire and the lively chatter of servants. This was her favorite part of the day, the cozy domesticity of it all, the sense of family and community. She loved these moments of simple joy, the laughter and camaraderie, because they were rare. Her family weren't poor, but they weren't rich either. This was an old castle that had seen better days, held together with a mix of mortar and prayers. There were only a handful of servants left, and most of them were nearing retirement age themselves. So it was up to Ella and her older brother, Gareth, to help run the household. Gareth had been gone for 2 weeks, visiting a university in the next kingdom to confer with other scholars about his research into ancient languages. Ella missed her brother terribly. He was her best friend, the one person she could talk to for hours without ever running out of things to say. When her father was in a good mood, he regaled them with stories of his youth, tales of daring adventures and narrow escapes. Her mother would listen patiently, her eyes shining with remembered fondness, while Ella peppered her father with questions, soaking up his every word. Those were good times. But tonight, her father was still and brooding, and her mother said little. The silence stretched, punctuated only by the crackling fire and the clink of cutlery. Ella pushed her plate away, suddenly unable to stomach the food. She excused herself and fled to the relative quiet of her room. She lay down on her bed, staring up at the canopy above her. When she was little, she begged her mother to let her sleep in a tower so she could be a real princess. Now she wasn't so sure that she wanted to be a princess after all. She wanted to be someone who could explore the world, who could have adventures, who could do more than sit in a tower watching the wind move the grass in the fields below. Her gaze drifted to the window, and she saw the tall trees at the edge of the property silhouetted against the fading light. Beyond the trees was the forest, an ancient, gnarled place filled with whispering shadows and rustling leaves. No one went into the woods anymore, not since her mother had warned her and her brother never to go there. Her mother had told them scary stories about the woods, tales of mythical beasts and goblins that lurked in the shadows, just beyond the edge of the firelight, waiting to snatch unwary travelers and drag them into the dark. No one dared go into the woods, not even during the day. Yet something was calling to her, something that promised adventure and excitement, if only she dared to answer. She pulled on her cloak and tied the hood tightly around her face. She slipped out of the castle and into the gathering dusk. Ella walked slowly at first, hesitantly, pushing aside the curtain of leaves that hung across the path. As she walked deeper into the woods, she realized how long it had been since she'd ventured this far from the castle. It was like entering another world. The air was cooler here, damper, and the trees grew so close together that the branches intertwined overhead, forming a leafy ceiling. The path was barely visible, but she followed it, trusting it would lead her somewhere. After what felt like hours, she came to a clearing, and standing in the center of the clearing was a small cottage. Smoke curled from its chimney, and the windows glowed with a warm, inviting light. She hesitated, surprised to find a cottage in the middle of the forest. Her mother's stories about mythical beasts and goblins flashed through her mind, but the sight of the cottage anchored her in reality. This was no figment of her imagination. Cautiously, she approached the cottage and knocked on the door. Her hand trembled as she waited for someone to answer. Who lived in this cottage? Was it a witch? A goblin? A monster? What would it do? The door creaked open, and a woman stood in the doorway. Her face was lined and weathered, like bark of an old tree, and her eyes twinkled with an inner light. She looked at Ella and smiled, a web of wrinkles crinkling around her eyes. "Well, hello there," she said, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "What brings you to my humble abode?" Ella hesitated, unsure what to say. I don't know," she stammered. "I was just walking in the woods, and I got lost." The woman chuckled, a low, throaty sound. "Lost, are you? Well, that won't do. Come inside, child, and I'll make you some tea." And as Ella stepped across the